wherever you are joining us from around Australia and from around the world. Welcome. We're enjoying the impact of this series and what it's making on people who join us. Thank you for all the feedback online, in messages and on Facebook now. This week sees the 21st week of the Telstra Connected Cycling, and the pro team of Sandy Woolley, Diane Hannon, Kurt Euston, Anna Mallon and John Pitchinen have planned to move in a slightly different direction this morning. Last week we had a decorated military hero, and this week we're moving again in a slightly different direction, trying to bring some interesting topics to you, and this one is a beauty. Today we're exploring the topic that we're all very well aware of, the topic of mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra. Now, that was a term coined by a marketing company in 2010, and our guest today has had the courage to look at the rise of mammals in society and across sport and decided to produce a feature-length documentary called Mammal. Filmmaker Nickolas Bird is that courageous man, and we welcome Nick to the Telstra Connected Cycling chat this morning. Of course, the Telstra Connected Cycling motto is connecting people and technology through the passion for cycling. And with that stated, here is our ride director, Sandy Woolley, for an update and state of play. Sandy.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome again. Week 21. It's unbelievable that we've come this far and for this long. Brilliant to have you all on board. And again, welcome to any of the newcomers, whether you're riding, walking, doona dwelling, or whatever it is that you're doing. I hope you enjoy the chat. For me, this is going to be an enlightening discussion because I have no idea. Mammal talks about things like social connection, men's health, riding with your mates for a good cause. None of the things that I have any idea about what he's talking about, and certainly I'm not middle-aged. 53, I'm getting on the first of old, so this is enlightening to me. I have no idea, none of the tensions in my relationship at all, none of that's ever happened with my riding. So looking forward to an enlightening chat. Now, in all seriousness, this obviously is very important to so many of us to look after our physical and mental health, well-being, and many of us have in the past in Telstra and amongst our community supported various charities, including Type 1 JDRF for Type 1 research, and they've got an event coming up which I've joined, and if anyone wants to join, then by all means, I'm sure JDRF will appreciate your support. I think with that, we're out rolling. Just a quick update on the ride. So I am the ride beacon. I'm going to be sitting on 2 watts. I encourage you to stick with me, particularly as we go up the hill. For those of you who do want to hit out, I understand. We appreciate that. Race up the hill. Enjoy your workout while you listen. But if not, hang with the bunch and enjoy the camaraderie of the virtual peloton. Back to you, Duncan, and look forward to hearing you speak to us this morning, Nick. Thanks.
No worries. Thanks, Sandy. So the ride has started. You should see on your Zwift now that you've rolled out and you're riding. And with that, I want to introduce Nick. Nickolas Bird is a filmmaker. He makes many films. Great documentary films on many different topics. Pioneers, soldiers and renegades, curtain call, all about slices of Australian life. And mammals is no different. So, Nick, welcome to the chat this morning on Telstra Connected Cycling. Thanks for connecting with us so early in the morning. So tell us about mammals, because I said just in my intro, you showed some courage to go down this path as a storyline. What captured you in the first instance, mate, with mammals?
Yeah, okay. So Mammal started as a documentary about a cycling club, and we were interested in a small regional cycling club in Warragul, and the competitive nature amongst all the participants, and that was like some of the female riders, the juniors and everything. But unfortunately, that we couldn't sell that in the market to a distributor, so because the film needed a distributor. So we met 2 guys from the Warragul Cycling Club that we thought were really funny, and just their interaction, the banter. I found their Australian humour between themselves. They could actually say some real nasty stuff to each other and get away with it. And I think we do that in Australia a bit. And I thought that would be really funny on camera in a good way. And then we found out one of those guys had depression, and he was quite happy to discuss that. And he was using cycling to counteract his depression, and we thought that was really interesting, and we pitched that to a distributor, and then Mammal basically was greenlit, and that's how but we had to make it international, so we had to go and find mammals all around the world. And mammal really is only a term that's really popular in the UK and Australia. In America, they don't even know what it is. They're like, mammal. What do you mean?
So it's a huge undertaking. Like, you started with a storyline, and then it basically landed on 3 continents in the filmmaking. Now, everything I've seen about filmmaking, it's just a bitch to do. Like, you've got to love the topic to the point of obsession to get this across the line, that filmmaking is one of the most difficult. It's like horse training. Like, to get a horse to win a race takes a Herculean effort of so many people, and then a fair bit of luck as well to get across the line. Filmmaking reminds me of horse training. It is just so difficult to get the shots, to get the storyline, to get the distribution, get the marketing, but you did it with mammals on 3 continents. Why did you go so big?
Well, the distributor works on it's the thing about Australian documentaries is that we have to think big, and it's a feature documentary. So we wanted to make a film that wanted to appeal to people, to make a night of it. It's sort of like a bit of a retro idea. It's not a Cineplex movie, so it's a movie designed for a niche audience. And for cycling clubs, would go and book a cinema, and they'd go and see it. So we're making it for that. So we wanted to make it appealing to everyone, and we wanted to do characters in America. We wanted to go to Europe, but we thought we'd take an Australian to Europe, and that was a really difficult piece to do. That was probably the hardest one, because our character Doug, was under a lot of stress, and us filming him was just another thing for him to worry about. He was a real stress head, and he wouldn't mind me saying that. But I mean, he's one of my favourite characters in the film, because I just think that really comes off from when he climbs that big mountain in Europe. I think it's the Tourmalet. Everyone's batting for him, and he's not going to win the Tour de France. We all know what it's like, but we set our own goals, right? So you guys might be on your trainer now, and you all might say, okay, I'm going to do an hour, and I'm going to my heart rate's going to be this for this, and I'm going to do this for the hour, and it's great, and you all set your own little goals and everything. So we wanted to capture that, but we wanted people to feel like they're getting their money's worth. They're coming out smiling, and I mean, Mammal went a bit dark, and it has got some dark elements to it, because every narrative film, you need to have little dark elements. Otherwise, it's just going to be like an emotional flat line. So, yeah.
Hey, do you have any background in cycling yourself, Nick?
Yeah, so I am a mammal as well, but I'm not a mammal at the moment. I'm off and on. I've got a trophy. I should have gone and got it to show you guys. I've got a D-grade trophy. I've won a bike race. Okay. So you're talking to, I know I'm talking to an Olympian. I can reach out to that part. I was a competitive bike racer, and I'll be doing 400 or 500 Ks a week sometimes to hurl around C grade. So I'm not blessed with a lot of talent, but can see the benefits of cycling. The most cycling I do at the moment is just riding my bike to work sometimes, but I've climbed Mount Hotham. I've done the Alpine Classic, and that stuff. So, I love being fit, love getting on the bike, when I can. We've just finished post on a film, so I haven't been doing a lot at the moment, but I can certainly understand why you guys and girls are riding in the morning, before work and doing a hit out. I get it. And, that's just absolutely fantastic.
Hey, mate, with that D-grade trophy under your belt, and all the
what can I say?
Yeah, exactly. I wish you would have brought it. We love it.
Yeah, I know.
Telstra Connected Cycling. But anyway, with that extensive background on winning, did it give you some insight into the storyline? Because the storyline, I'm not too sure if mammal is a positive term or a negative term. Did it change for you over time? Because I think it's a fun term. I think it's a beautiful play on words. But did it change as you filmed the movie?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting. I see it. I think it's up to the person themselves, how they view it, and I think it encompasses. It's as much applicable to men as women, and I think it's just how people view themselves as well. A lot of one of our characters said, "Oh, I don't want to be one of those guys that just rides 2 days a week on a $10,000 bike." And I thought to myself, well, that's exactly what you are. And what's the problem with it? So he was saying he didn't want to be one of those guys, but he was one of those guys. So it was just really weird. He was in some sort of mammal denying thing. But yeah, I see it as a positive term. I mean, I think it's how we embrace ourselves, and I think it's a great way to connect. The bike connects people in so many levels, and almost spiritually. Like, one of the characters would say it's a spiritual experience riding a bike, and here all you guys are connected over the internet riding your bikes together. It's fantastic. And you're all riding the same circuit, aren't you, on a little computer? Is that right? You got Zwift or something? Yeah, so you've got a circuit that you've designed. So you all climb a hill together, basically, and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So as COVID has come up, Zwift and these online platforms have become so much more important for us, remaining in our bunch rides, remaining sort of connected with our friends. And this is where these conversations come from, mate. So, So were you surprised with the take-up and the popularity of the film? Because I absolutely loved it. Like, the quality of the shoot is absolutely incredible. You must have been pleased with the quality of the outcome of the feature documentary. You've made many documentaries. Where does this one rank in terms of quality?
Yeah, quality is an interesting term. So quality in terms of the the shots and the way the camera angles and everything. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think we pulled that together beautifully. And we had some doco cams which really got in raw. We shot them on special cinema cameras, and we had to shoot on motorbikes. So technically, it was a really challenging film, and we just loved that. We just wanted to have those visual sequences singing, but we learnt that we couldn't overuse that device, and they were really expensive to get. And we had some real scary moments. We had a GoPro go off on a bunch ride and nearly bring down a whole pack of cyclists. So we weren't really popular on that shoot.
Mate, we've all done that. We've all dropped our GoPro through the bunch and everything.
They're such rubbish.
If you haven't done that, you're not riding enough.
I hate GoPro, but I love them because their pathway's really hard to bring them into the film, and they're a pain in the neck. But gee, they look great. So that's the problem with that domestic equipment. Sort of let us down a bit, but it ranks really highly. I mean, we had Demand Film had a look that they wanted in the film, and they wanted it to do certain things and tick certain boxes. We had lots of elements and lots of characters and stuff.
The rise of the topic memo has been really interesting as I'm doing the research in terms of waterbird films and what you're doing online and things like that. I came across an article from Singapore, a news article from Singapore. They did like a small episode in terms of the Asia Pacific rise of the mammal and what it means for the economy. And back in 2014, they judged that basically this part of the industry or the economy was tracking around about $14 billion, but they're projecting it because of the popularity of middle-aged men in Lycra. And what we do for the economy in terms of buy the $10,000 frames, put on the zip wheels, get the gear, do our own T-shirt design, get our clubs up and running, do the charity rides like JDRF and Tour de Cure. That they're projecting the Asia Pacific mammal market will grow to $25 billion by 2025, which is an extraordinary lift in terms of gear and things like that. Did you find as you were shooting this film in the three continents that you're constantly surprised with the size and the activity in the mammal market?
Yeah, I didn't realize the market was so big, and I think when middle-aged people walk into a bike shop, I think the bike shop should really treat them well and treat them seriously, because they're really propping up the industry. It's hardly making money out of the competitive athletes that ride with Jerry Ryan cycling team. The industry isn't really about it's so small. I mean, it's people like all of you guys that are keeping the bikes in the market, and and going out and buying your tires and your tubes and your Trek Madones or whatever you're on. I'm showing my age because I ride a Trek Madone, and yes, Lance cheated, but no, I'm not chucking it out. Sorry, I stand by my bike. Okay, it's one bike races, all right. So it's staying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. I'm on a 2004 Pinarello, the last one they made in the alloy frames, and I'm not chucking it out either because they don't race it like the guys in 2004, so it definitely does me well. What I like more about anything else, and as a filmmaker, you've got to contrast things. I mean, you just can't be happy. These guys are getting going somewhere on their bikes. They're really diving down into, maybe a bit of a personal, whether it's depression, whether it's tough times and things like that. They're getting some relief off that, and the bike is definitely doing that for them. But you've also contrasted it with the partner's story, whether it be wives, girlfriends, and family members. Was that a hard decision to make, to sort of go down that path to get a contrasting view of what the obsession with bikes at our age, middle age, does on the families and friends?
Yeah, I thought that was really really interesting, and I mean, I think to be successful at any sport, and being a mammal, your success can be like losing weight and just feeling good about yourself and just saying, what, I've achieved this, or my success could be riding 4 mornings a week. And that's my success. Not everyone has to go out and bike race, and my success could be, not being dropped on a hill with my mate. So they've got all these versions of success, and whatever reason, that commitment is going to take time away from your partners, and it's going to come at a cost. And if your partner doesn't get that side of you or doesn't understand it, then there's going to be some sort of conflict. And we were sort of interested in that. We didn't want them to come across too badly. So it was a real juggling act with that. And I mean, in the wife with the guy with MS, they were actually almost having a fight on camera, and it was like a debrief. And we had to be really careful because we didn't want people to, really dislike her in the film, because her husband's got MS or whatever. But her things were totally legitimate. Or there's the guys in Perth where they're, the husband said, he was busy and he was designing a T-shirt with his mate's face on it for their club.
Yep.
It was funny, but there was a bit of sadness in those scenes as well. But people have often said they're the most interesting scenes for them. So yeah.
So what's the feedback been like? You basically was it the Carlton premiere that you went down there and you had a really great crowd up there and stuff like that? So the film is wrapped up. You're really, really happy with the edit and the production. You put it out there. So what was that like what do you like as a filmmaker when your little baby gets out there on premiere night? What's that like?
Yeah, so we premiered at the Adelaide Film Festival, and that's the first tier film festival in Australia. So Australia has about 5 film festivals, and to get in there is really amazing. So we had a official selection, and we were in competition there, and it screened really well and did really well. And from there, Demand did their Demand film releases all around the world. So it's screened at the most. That's what I love about Demand, is that there could be a little town in America with 400 people, and there's no way in a traditional cinema distribution that a film would come to their little community, but they would just rent Mammal, put it in a church hall or whatever, and watch it. And as a filmmaker, that's exactly what we love. We just want to reach people that necessarily couldn't be reached and couldn't be targeted. So as a filmmaker, that's our voice, and that's really our payment. As directors and producers, it's like we're telling a story, and I hear those stories, and they're wonderful. We don't. Frankly, I don't make films to be in a multiplex at Village Cinemas. It's not the sort of stuff I want to do. Really, to be honest with you, and I know that sounds a bit arrogant, but well, people just we do what we want, and You know, the documentaries that get screened in those places usually come at a cost, and they're usually quite sensational and self-deprecating and sort of just really quite something awful in them, and we don't really want to make films like that. So
yeah, no, some of my earliest memories when I thought I was a surfer back in the day was going to the Patch nightclub during a weeknight, because Nat Young would come up with his latest documentary film, his latest sort of like we surfed out there kind of thing, and we would all get in there and they'd put a sheet up and the projector would go on, the film would go on, and it was a great night. It's some of my favourite memories. And then, you know, as I got older, I went to the Patch nightclub on the weekends, and some of my worst memories happened at the same venue. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
But in interesting, you talk about surfing, like cycling. There's a whole industry of surfing films, and there's many filmmakers like us that make surfing documentaries. And I know of one in production in Perth at the moment. Whole industry, and very, very, very similar, and very popular all around the world, like cycling films. If you hit a good cycling film, then it does really well. Australia's had its fair share. We had All for One, another film that was released around Memel. Very different film. It's a film about the cycling team, but very good film. And like Memel, you know, people rented it and did all sorts of things with it. So yeah,
cycling clubs must have got stuck into it for movie nights.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, loved it. Cycling clubs all around the world. We've had screenings in. We had a screening in Russia, and out in Ireland, which don't really do a lot of this sort of stuff. We've had the UK, the big in the UK, in America, quite big. The take up in America has been really, really quite successful, and our American characters were really hard work in the film, and emotionally really killed.
Hard work. Why? Because they're dickheads, or?
Yeah, basically, just you know, when you agree to make a film, it's sort of it's reasonably serious, so you have to be reasonably committed. And as doco filmmakers, you know, we don't pay, so we don't. You can't really go and offer money. So, but I don't think and they'll be quite happy in me saying this because they know how I feel. Is that don't say yes unless you're prepared to. I mean, look, they come across really well on the screen, and I'm really glad people like them. And yeah, it was just hard work. I mean, we had a whole other scene where they were going to marching Pride March, and we scheduled a whole. Man, we filmed Memel for 10 weeks, non-stop, all around the world. I had a film crew, and we were tired, and we scheduled it all around their Pride March, and we thought that'd be really interesting. You know, mammals, you know, in Pride, and most mammals aren't like that, so they're quite strange in the mammal group, and we thought that's really cool, and it's interesting. And and they were marching in Pride. They said, "Oh, it's too hot. We're not going to go." And we're like, "Oh."
Storyline just disintegrating in the heat.
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, so that was all in the cutting room, which is fine because So
what
I was just a bit
shocked you? What other things shocked you in the 10-week shoot?
The Adelaide Fat Boys, the depression story with that guy. He wasn't a character. We're following another character. The problem is with Memel, the difficulties we had is that the characters were all the same.
We are boringly the same.
And so we were after different characters, obviously, because otherwise people would be like, "Oh, okay, you're all the same." And when he just started his discussion and just basically like, "These guys saved my life," you know, and the other guys were like, "We didn't even know that this was happening." And he would just sit in the corner and just have his coffee or whatever, but he's not realising that his life was saved by the cycling group. I mean, when something like that happens to you and you hadn't researched it and you're rolling the camera, you're thinking, "Oh, okay, how do we do this? How do we explore this?" You know, and that changed that whole arc for that story, which is really the most interesting for us, because what we wanted to explore is that form of mateship amongst the mammals.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when you've got to get that contrasting storyline, and then one shows up and you've got to pivot, and then chase it down, and then you've got to look at the value proposition of pivoting and into the storylines going, because you're only on a 10-week shoot, right?
Yeah, and plus the health of him too. You know, him talking about it, and talking about, you know, the fact that he was going to kill himself. It was reasonably serious for us because we're thinking, hang on, have we unearthed something here? What's going to happen? And we had to make sure he was okay, and we had to go back and think about the consent and say, right, do you want to talk about this to the thousands of people who are going to see it, you know? And people would mention it in write-ups. He's done stuff with Beyond Blue. So it's been really quite a journey for him. But he's, you meet remarkable people making films, and he's one of the remarkables for me.
Absolutely.
Just really, really brave, yeah.
So it hasn't been all beer and Skittles, mate, since the film came out. You got a little bit of backlash from interesting areas. How do you go as a person when you're a little baby, you film that you put your heart and soul and gets criticism? How do you go, Nick?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Okay, so, you know, some people just said, oh, it was too long, it's boring, series of YouTube videos, whatever. And, you know, yeah, take it on the board. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Mammal's long. It's a long film. Does it feel long? Well, some people say it's long, some people don't. So each to their own. Mammal did well commercially. Our distributor was very happy. Mammal got a lot of positive reviews from cycling magazines. But, hey, we'll take them.
Yeah.
We'll take them. And Mammal was hard. It is a hard-hitting film if people watched it and just sat there and just watched it and just got it. Then it would reach those hard-hitting moments. For those critics that criticised it, particularly Bad One in London, you know, The Guardian or whatever, I just say to them, have they made a film under commercial pressure, under the commercial realities, and have they had to follow real characters and follow their arcs and been told by a distributor that you have to have a character in America, you have to go to Europe, and you have to do this and you have to do this. These are the rules. So it's like a bike race and you've got a circuit. You may not like the circuit, but you have to ride that circuit. And it may not be something that you excelling. That style for Eleanor and I is very difficult for us. We find it very challenging to tell observational doco with the through lines. Eleanor and I really thrive in the past. So for instance, for you guys, some people like hills, some people don't. Eleanor and I struggle on the hills, but we get there in the end. And we had a lot of people saying, you know, they loved it. But when people criticise it, it's hard not to take it personally, but I do listen and I take it seriously. And as a professional, you just have to soak it up, get back on your bike and make another film. And, you know, and if you made mistakes during the production process, you try to improve. And I, as a producer, I don't like wasting money. I don't like stuff being in the cutting room. Because we're indie, right? Our films are usually under $2 million. So they're very budget for these sorts of films. So we can't afford to film people and have them in the cutting room. But it's just, it's money down the, you know, we're not Hollywood. So every frame I want to use, and I don't like cutting out stuff. But yeah, it's take it. Look, you do take it a bit personally, and you read a bad review, and you get down. You go, oh, you know, I wish I'd done that. Or I remember at Adelaide when I watched it, and I was walking out at the Adelaide Film Festival, and he was going, oh, it was great. There was this bloke in front of me, and he's talking to his page. He said, oh, great, I really enjoyed it. Oh, gee, it was long. And I thought, oh,
so you went from the penthouse to the outhouse in one comment.
Yeah.
Hey, so because one of the bravest things I think filmmakers like yourself do, you and Eleanor do, is you basically you have a premiere and then you stand out the front and answer questions. Like, how do you like that process? Are you more, I like this and I like to be in the background more, or do you love the cut and thrust of what could we get from this audience in terms of putting my baby out there and getting it critiqued in the moment?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind this. This is actually quite nice. I don't like doing radio. We had a lot of publicity for Mammal. It was amazing. Everyone got onto it. We're on News Breakfast. I remember we went on ABC News Breakfast, and I didn't know ABC News Breakfast was shot in Melbourne. So I'm just getting the makeup on and everything, and I just thought I was just going in a little booth and talking like this. And they said, oh, no, just come in. And they opened the door and the whole studio's there. And no one had told me that I was going on a TV studio in prime time on ABC News Breakfast. I just thought I was a little guest speaker, like this sort of thing. And I freaked out. I started having panic. I was sweating, and that was 10 seconds. And I was just about to go to air, and the Virginia Trioli, is that her name? She said, "Oh no, only 200,000 people are watching," and it just made me feel so much worse. And they're patting me down with makeup and trying to get me calm, but I got calm just before it started. So, and then I was like a deer in headlights at the Adelaide Film Festival. Scott Hicks had just watched our film, Remembering the Man. He's a big director, and he was in the audience, and it was a really intimate little cinema. It felt like there were just about 40 people there, and Eleanor and I were just standing out the front, and I was just like a deer in headlights. It was the worst Q&A, and Eleanor just said, "I can't believe it. You know, you're not great at doing Q&A." So we've decided from then that I'm not really the big Q&A person. So she mainly does the Q&As. I sort of do stuff like this. And I thought, a great opportunity to talk to some mammals and mammalettes on their bikes in the morning.
And fellow race winners, don't forget.
Yes, fellow race winners. Yeah, I know. Wish I had my trophy here, guys. You'd be so envious. You'd be like, "Oh,
it's okay. We're imagining something 3 foot tall."
And I have Shimano wheels as well on my Trek. Obviously, I've got to have the nice wheels. They're gold.
Ooh la la!
Yeah, people do drop their jaw when they see them. Obviously, my bike position's really good, as you can imagine, and sort of ride like a goanna. My legs are out.
You're that guy in the bunch.
Yeah, I know. I like to squeeze into a medium top, of course. Being 100 kilos, it's a good look. Yeah,
they call you muffin, even through the top of your bibs.
I know.
But anyway,
I know.
That's all really interesting, and it's really, really fascinating to look at how much grunt it takes to get a film up, how much time and effort goes into producing a film and shooting a film, and and then you've got the actors and the characters and the people that you're trying to shoot and stuff like that. So the storylines are unbelievable. How many films you make, Nick? How many films have you made in your as a producer and filmmaker?
So feature docs, they're big babies. So this, I'm making one at the moment, so it's our 5th. Yeah, so we like to make one every 3 years. We did a lot of commercial films. I did commercials for 15 years. Did a lot of health films for Department of Human Services, and commercials for nursing, because I used to be a nurse, so I've used that health background. Feature documentaries, we've done prime time for ABC, SBS. As television has died, we've tapped into the cinema audience, which seems to be going through an interesting transformation at the moment. I have no desire to make things for Netflix, particularly, to be honest with you. I don't like the idea of hooking an audience in the first few seconds or the first few minutes. I don't like that style of filmmaking. I like to really reveal the film slowly. So cinema audience and Netflix audiences are totally different, I believe. A cinema audience, you're locked in. You've paid $25 for your ticket. You're going to sit down. You're going to watch our movie. It's going to have to be pretty bad for you to walk out. So we wanted to invest in our characters slowly at the beginning. So people are going on about streaming and everything, and that's absolutely fine. And but our films are still made. Well, the film I'm working on at the moment is made particularly for the cinema audience. Whether cinemas are going to be around next year, well, I mean, I can't control a pandemic, so. Yeah, it's,
you seem to stick to topics you know a lot about. You do nursing films. I've seen on your website. You do cycling films. You do cinema films like Curtain Call, where you drive into that side or that part of the Australian psych. So you kind of stick to your lane, don't you, Nick? Then in terms of stuff you know and know intimately and well.
Yeah, well, so Curtain Call was interesting. That was about the retiring of Terry Gill and his wife. Terry Gill's a big actor. It's on the Blue Heelers and Prisoner and all that, and that's it. And they were running a pantomime theatre, and a landlord was trying to close them down. But that's really a story about a relationship, and no, I'm really glad we made that film. That premiered in competition at Melbourne International Film Festival, screened on SBS, so it did really well for us. And that's one of our babies. Yeah.
Hey, the voice for Mammal, the great Phil Liggett. How did you get to meet Phil? How did you get him on board with Mammal?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, because would you believe people wouldn't go and see Mammal because Phil voiced it? There are people out there that still haven't forgiven him for Lance. I know, they're just a few.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they wrote to us and said, I mean, so
I need to get over it.
I know they do need to get over it, but they also need to put themselves in Phil's position at the time. So, yeah, how we met him, we wrote to him. Phil's incredibly accommodating, and Phil doesn't have an agent, which is really cool for filmmakers like us, because the agents get in the way. So we just said, we've got this amount of money. We want you to do the narration, and we want to use your voice to talk to our audience and to market the film. And he said, yep, I'm in. Yeah. So there we go. And he was great, just so accommodating. I was just, because I'm a big Phil Liggett fan, so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Phil Liggett. So I flew over there and had to do the voiceover with him. And he's like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm just thinking, I want to meet Phil Liggett. So they're in the sound booth going, oh, there's Phil Liggett. And the first thing I learned about Phil Liggett is we had 4 pages of Mammal script, and it's just basic script, because he comes in and out, and he read it in 10 minutes.
Oh,
and I'm like, I had the studio for 2 hours. I'm like, he's like, I'm all done now. He's actually British accent. He's a lot worse in real life. And another thing, he's really softly spoken. You know how you have him on the TV and those dulcet tones and everything, and it's quite pronounced. But when he's in life, he's a real low talker. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Trying to hear him. I'm like, what do you say? Yeah, so incredible guy. So yeah, being a big Phil Liggett fan, obviously myself, love the guy. So it's there. That was really interesting.
How big was the film to get such a voice on such a cycling film? How big was that?
Oh well, I think it was amazing, and I just think it's yeah, I just think it was great. He's got such a beautiful voice, and I just thought it's just going to add so much to the narrative. And when we pitched it to the distributor, he was like, oh, what a great idea, you know? And, yeah.
Because it's kind of crazy. Like, you couldn't have a rugby league film without Ray Warren voicing it. You know, it would not make sense. Or maybe an AFL film with Dennis Cometti or a Brucey. So getting him across the line must have been a big moment.
Yeah, no, it was. It really was. And he loved the film. We just think it's a real, sort of love letter about mammals. Really, it's we're not taking the piss in a nasty way or anything. And I'm a mammal myself, so why would I make fun of myself? It's a real, it's lighthearted, but it has those heavy moments in there, discussing male depression and friendship.
Okay, well, give us your opinion, Nico. Like, what is it about cycling that brings the obsessive out into a certain age group of men? That we want to get up at all hours, climb awful mountains, wear silly stuff, buy $1,000, multi-$1,000 frames and wheels, and the cycling porn that you buy, every single week. You get your magazines or you go online and stuff. Why do you think, now you've gone through this experience, you remember yourself, why are we so obsessive at this age about cycling? What is cycling? What does cycling do to us?
Well, it's really interesting. And one thing I did find out, my characters in Mammal, and I don't know if this is a common thread with all mammals, and I can't say, but they were incredibly lonely. And it was really interesting. And it's something we had difficulty exploring, but it's like these married guys with beautiful families, and there's a sense of loneliness, and they weren't feeling connected. And cycling somehow brought them back into the schoolyard, brought them back into a time when they feel like, you know what? We can be boys on the bike ride. I can say that without being viewed as being offended. I trust these people next to me. I can say that. I can be a dickhead, or if they want to be, and not being pulled up by the PR police or whatever. And is Mammal, a male-dominated thing? It is, but there are obviously female mammals there, which Mammal didn't explore. It's one of the criticisms. So in reflection, we could have done that differently. But it's that's really interesting. But it's something about that zen on a bike and men's shed. It's a form of a men's shed.
There you go.
I believe.
Talking about there's a loneliness in the men's ranks, and sorry for all the ladies on hang on about the blokes. So you're feeling there's a loneliness in the men's ranks to be around other men. Yeah, well, adventurous, like you're a pack of boys at school, and you think the bike steps into that.
I think for some, I can't stereotype all mammals, guys.
Of
I'm
course
just
not.
saying,
Of course
just
not.
saying the guys that I met, there was some of that, particularly in Australia,
Okay.
and that was really interesting. And as uncomfortable as it might be to explore out loud, that's what we found.
So again, and Megan calls it out on the questions, it's about connection, isn't it? It's about what the bike provides in terms of a connection tool for lonely blokes who might not be getting, because of the corporate lifestyle, because of the family at full throttle, because you've got all these things in your life. You're not sort of getting, well, the pub life is pretty much dead, isn't it? We're not getting to the pub like our grandfathers did and our fathers did, kind of thing, back in the day. And, we've sort of got these high-powered careers going as much as we possibly can and trying to balance up the family. So when are we seeing our men's groups?
Yeah, this is it. And the men that you went to school with or whatever may not have similar interests. All of the mammals, or including mammalettes, we call them middle-aged men in lycra, including women, I believe, have one thing in common, and that's at that time they're into fitness. At that time they're trying to get their better selves and try to improve on something. Now, again, everyone has their own fitness goals. It might be trying to get rid of the beer belly, or trying to do a certain time, or try to identify a certain part of the youth and get a youthfulness back. What we're trying to do at the moment, we've adapted Mammal into a screenplay, into a narrative feature, but we can't raise the finance to make a narrative film at this stage, but it's in our pipeline, and it's based on the play in New Zealand, and it explores this. Our character goes through all this, and the beautiful thing that a documentary can't do, that a narrative feature does, is that we can look at our themes that we took from Mammal and go, right, let's bring this into one character. People talk about domestic violence against women, which is absolutely horrendous. But men do suffer some domestic violence as well, and there's a lot of emotional violence against them. And in terms of when they lose their houses, their kids, they get divorced, and they just end up with nothing, and they're at the lowest point in their lives. And you wouldn't believe the amount of suicides and stuff that happens. Well, we've made a film that explores all that. Our character goes through all that, and he raises himself out of the ashes through his bike, and his friends in the bike save his life almost. And so that's the problem with narrative features. Of course, they cost much more than documentaries to make, and being an Australian film, rarely make their money back. So they aren't a lot of opportunity. So without government funding, incentives. So there, a lot of without government funding, of course, something like that doesn't happen. And government funding is very competitive. Of course, our Mammal had government funding because they saw that we pitched the men's health aspects of Mammal, and that's why in order to get funding, we had to explore that. So if we didn't explore that, we would have been in big trouble. People wanted more fun on bikes and stuff, and the whole film to be about that, but I couldn't make a movie like that. It had to go into the negatives as well.
Yeah, no, you've really comprehensively looked at sometimes the dark side of life and what the bike can do in terms of that connection and bringing people into groups and support groups through their passion for the bike and getting out and riding. The passion continues. You've got a new film coming out on that hero of yours, Phil Liggett. It's called The Voice of Cycling. Tell us a little bit about that. Did this just come about because you had a great cappuccino with the big man and you thought, I think there's a movie there? How did this all come about?
So when Paul Sherwin died, which was really sad, and for those guys who don't know, Paul Sherwin was Phil Liggett's broadcast partner for 37 years, and they broadcast all around the world those beautiful dulcet tones. And Paul was the guy that would just sit there and talk to Phil for the whole 3 hours during the Tour de France or whatever. So when he died, we thought that would be an interesting arc, how Phil was going to progress from there. And as sad as that was, that moment got our attention, and we started to frame a proposal, a story, and we wrote him a very detailed letter, because Phil has said no on many occasions to documentaries, but we managed to convince him that we're going to do something amazing on his life and his arc. And and that film's going to premiere in Adelaide in October, and we'll have a wide release next year. So, and it's going to screen all over the world like Mammal, and we've got big plans for it. So you guys should definitely watch out for it. I think I think you guys and girls would certainly love it.
So you go all the way back to Phil's past, where he all kicked off, how he was a bike rider himself, and how fledgling the Brit scene was when he first got rolling, and just basically how he did it on a shoestring and all those sort of things, and then became the Phil Liggett once he retired with his first sort of job and what he's turned into today, which is the father of cycling.
Yeah, he literally is the voice of cycling, and he's got many highs and lows in his career. He's a great conservationist with rhinos, which a lot of people don't know about. His wife, Trish, is an incredible protagonist in the female cycling scene. And we've done a whole thing on the Tour de Feminine and her role in it. It's amazing. It's one of those stories that just keeps giving. And it kept unfolding and was very controlled. And he was amazing to deal with. He's just incredibly generous with his time. Just such a pro. It's been an incredible experience, and I can't imagine making a film like this again. It's just everything has just come together, and it's a real tight film. You guys are just going to love it. Yeah, it's just great.
While filming the film, you must have been sort of a little bit overwhelmed with just how people in the cycling scene treat Phil. Like where he goes, he's like royalty.
Yes.
He walks onto the track and everyone kind of says, "Oh, there's Phil," and kind of sighs.
I know.
It's like walking down the street with Ray Warren and these sort of like current Brucey and stuff like that. There's this collective feeling of joy whenever the crowd keys in that Phil's here, and then you go, everyone's like, it must have been great to film that, eh?
Yeah, it was. We tried to explore why he's loved so much. I don't know if we've answered that question because no one actually has the answer. He is a particular rock star in Australia, not so much in England. Again, he's an Australian and America. He's huge in North America. I mean, he's a star. I mean, the Americans at the Tour de France, just incredible. And NBC treat him like royalty. Of course, the first Tour de France without Paul Sherman was tricky, and he was trying to find his way. And no, he's not the same. He's not the same Phil Liggett. Of course, he's lost half of his broadcast team, so it's a different show for the NBC. Of course, he doesn't work on the SBS World feed anymore, obviously, and we explore why that happened and how that unfolded. Of course, there's the whole Lance affair, and that's in there. We didn't want to shy away from that, so that was a condition of us doing it.
So what does he say? Give us a preview of how he handles the Lancey situation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Phil is very principled, and he has his ways and his opinions. And look, they haven't changed. And I think people have to put themselves in his shoe. He's a cycling commentator. It's entertainment, guys. So he can't go out and start bagging the thing he's commentating. I mean, that'd be like not his job. So people like David Walsh and that expected him to do that, but for some reason the other commentators didn't have to do it, but Phil Liggett had to. So I don't know why everyone seems to hold him up for account.
Yeah, I think they want him to be a bit of a beacon to take on the suspicions and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you go into some of his hallmark sayings? I think he used to say about Robbie McEwen that Robbie McEwen had his Harry Potter cloak of invisibility, that all of a sudden he'd be at the line, or such and such is digging deep into his suitcase of courage. Did you go into those sort of stuff?
Yeah, we did. There's a whole little Liggettism scene there that we loved. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, why didn't you bring it out for the tour start? Like this tour start, like I know COVID has sort of like put everything up in the air, but you put it back to October in terms of the opening or the premiere or the release. And yet the tour starts kind of next week.
Oh yeah, so that's the commercial realities of filmmaking. So the Adelaide Film Festival are a partner in funding the film. The film's a $1.6 million film, so we've had to get money from everywhere,
Anna, any questions that you want to call out there? If anyone's got any questions for Nick in the last 10 minutes, we're going to hear from our voice of the bunch, Mary Lee Hatch, in just a second. But if there's any questions there, there's a few comments. Shemel Rocks from Armando. Shemel Rocks, I know the looks we get when you roll up to the start line. Yep, on the kit. Classic stories. Great connection from Megan. Thank you very much for making your comments. So each week on Telstra Connected Cycling, we ask one of our audience to close the event. We're coming up to the close. We've got about 5 minutes to go. And we asked them to share a bit of their story. And this week we've asked Mary Lee Hatch to be our voice from the bunch. So Mary, if you can unmute yourself and say thanks to Nick for coming along, sharing his story, talking about mammals and previewing his film, that would be great.
Here I am.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm out in the real world. I'm not down in the basement like some people are, peddling away. Poor, pathetic little individuals. I don't know what to say, really. It just brings the whole mammal thing into stark relief, doesn't it? Yeah, so good morning to you all. I've really enjoyed the chat this morning, and I've got to say I've got a bit of a Phil Leggett crush for someone who isn't a bike rider. I always put Phil Leggett and Richard Burton on the same kind of pedestal. I just want to go out to dinner with them and have them just talk to me, just to hear that voice. And no, we wouldn't go there on a bike. But I do have to say, I loved the mammal movie. It did, what can I say? It did get me a little bit fired up. For those who were there in the audience the night that I saw it, I did have to grab the microphone at the end and just have a spray, because yes, as a mammal, a widow, a mammal widow, there's a lot that needs to be explored. Even beyond the movie. But the movie did a good job of it. And I've just got to say one last thing. The other person I could love to meet is that farmer who got hit by the double B truck. Just what a wonderful little character in there in the play. Wasn't he amazingly hilarious?
Yes.
His family. I'm from the country, so hearing people speak like that just totally flat. Basically going,
yeah.
Oh, just hilarious.
Got hit by a truck, yeah,
by a B double, not just a truck, by a B double. But he's just gorgeous, back on the bike again. So wonderful morning, everyone. Always good, and I'll keep walking.
Yes, you will, Mary Lee.
Yay! Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being our voice of the bunch. See, Nickolas, you're surrounded by supporters, mate, who love the film. Got a couple of comments.
Love it.
Yeah,
love
a couple
it.
of comments
love
coming in.
love it. Yeah,
saying, love the film, just watched it in 2 seconds, fantastic. I want to give a big shout out to Megan Herron this morning. Just got back from her an extraordinarily long ride up to Yeppoon. Where was it? Brisbane to Yeppoon, was it? I'm not too sure where you kicked off from, but an awesome effort, Megan. And it's wonderful to see you in your pain cave back doing a few pedaling laps with us this morning after that. So well done. Just want to remind everybody to follow us on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook as well. We'll also be posting up then when those dates are in October for Nickolas's next film, which is The Voice of Cycling, Phil Leggett. If you haven't, Nick, if we haven't seen it, if people haven't seen it, where do we pick it up? Where do we get Mammals from? What's the best place?
Oh, yeah. So Mammals is basically on all the streaming services. Google, okay. It's on Amazon. It's distributed by Madman. They're a really big distributor. They can go to JB Hi-Fi. You can get your own copy. It's got DVD features and everything. Yeah, it's something that you definitely should have on the library amongst your copy of American Flyers, All for One, all the other docos in cycling.
Overcoming the CSC, all that kind of stuff. That's great, mate. Well, it's been a fascinating chat to such an accomplished filmmaker, mate. Thank you very much for getting
Thank
up
you.
early.
Thanks,
and joining
everyone.
in with us. Thanks for talking to a deep topic too that Memel sort of talks about with connection and depression and loneliness and things like that. That was really, really fascinating stuff. It's something that I'm going to think about in my Memelness, if that's what I'm searching for as well. So thanks for your time, Nick. Good luck with the release in October. We look forward to you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. See you later, everyone.